I didn't expect the valley to remember me. Yet the moment my boots crunched onto the gravel path leading up to my old cabin, something in the mountain air shifted, like the pines inhaled sharply, whispering my name after all these years. 5 years away, and still this place clung to every memory I tried so hard to forget. The creek still babbled the same sleepy melody. The wind still tugged at the wooden shingles like an impatient child. But beneath all that familiarity throbbed something darker, something I had returned for. Revenge. When I left the valley, I was just another nobody, an easy target for the petty tyrants who ran the Mountains Crest Homeowners Association like a dictatorship in yoga pants and pastel sweaters. At the top of that insufferable pyramid was Karen Winslow, who believed the sun rose for the sole purpose of reflecting off a massive SUV. She lived to exert control over everyone's fences, mailboxes, landscaping choices, and if she'd had her way, the very air they breathed. And me? I was a kid with a run-down, inherited cabin, and no patience for her nonsense. She fined me for my porch light being too warm. She cited me for having a non-compliant mailbox. She once threatened legal action because my wind chimes disrupted the acoustic tranquility of the valley, whatever that meant. She was a one-woman crusade against joy. But back then, I didn't have the power to push back. Now, things had changed, because the valley didn't know what I'd done while I was gone. It had no clue what I had become. It didn't know the truth about those seemingly endless legal papers I'd fought through or the string of deals I'd made. It didn't know that every acre surrounding this cabin had passed through 4 sets of hands before finally landing in mine. It didn't know that the Mountains Crest HOA, Karen's little empire, stood on land now owned entirely by me. In fact, no one knew. Well, almost no one. As I reached the cabin porch, I noticed the envelope taped to my door. Thick white paper. HOA seal. The sight of it made something old and smoldering inside me flare into a slow, vindictive burn. It was almost nostalgic, the perfect welcome-back insult. Karen's handwriting slanted across the front like it was scolding the envelope for existing. I ripped it open. Notice of violation. Immediate action required. The letter went on to inform me, in aggressively polite bullet points, that my cabin's exterior did not conform to approved aesthetic standards. My truck, parked in my own driveway, was in violation of acceptable color palette. My chimney were producing an unapproved level of rustic aesthetic disruption. Yes, she had actually written that. 5 minutes back, and she was already on the offensive. Typical Karen. I hadn't even stepped inside yet, and I already felt the cold edges of satisfaction sharpening. This was going to be good. A perfect stage for what was coming next. But the best stories don't start with retaliation. They start with a question, and the one that had haunted me during the long drive back was simple. How far would Karen go when she learned I was the valley's new landlord? I had a feeling the answer was going to be spectacular. I folded the notice and slipped it into my jacket pocket. It was a souvenir now, proof of the spark that would ignite the next few weeks. As I pushed open the cabin door, the scent of cedar and dust washed over me. The place had been cleaned recently, not by me but by the caretaker I'd hired after finalizing my ownership of the land. The interior glowed with polished wood and fresh mountain sunlight. It wasn't grand or modern. It was quiet, timeless, and mine. Outside, the gravel crunched again. But this time, it wasn't under my boots. Someone was approaching. Heavy, confident steps. The kind of footsteps belonging to someone who believed the world should be grateful for their presence. I didn't even have to look through the window to know who it was. Karen Winslow. Her shadow stretched across the porch before she did. A rigid silhouette in pastel pink, sunglasses big enough to be satellite dishes, and a clipboard clutched so tightly it looked like she was ready to beat someone to death with it. Preferably me. She didn't bother knocking. She stabbed the doorbell with the force of a meteor strike. I opened the door slowly. Her lips were pursed so tight they practically disappeared. "Oh," she said, her tone dripping sugar and arsenic. "It really is you." "Karen," I replied, "good to see you haven't changed." She sniffed. "We didn't receive your move-in notice." "Didn't know I needed one." "You absolutely do. Page 3, paragraph 6, subsection C." She tapped her clipboard. "And we also need to discuss your violations." I read the letter. And she lifted an eyebrow like she expected me to grovel. And I'll handle it, I said calmly. I didn't blink, didn't look away, didn't shift the slightest bit under her stare. Something in my voice must have bothered her, because she straightened her shoulders, trying to regain control. I want to be perfectly clear, she said. Mountains Crest maintain certain standards. We expect full compliance. Quickly. Oh, I know, I said. I've always admired your commitment to order. She paused. I could practically see the gears grinding in her head. She didn't like my tone. She lifted her chin. We'll be in close contact, I'm sure. Oh, we will, I promised. When she turned to leave, I watched her stride down the path, self-importance radiating from every movement. She didn't know it yet, but each step she took was on land she no longer had any authority over. She didn't know the leash around her precious HOA was now held firmly, very firmly, by me. I leaned against the doorframe, the mountain breeze brushing past like a conspirator. The valley had remembered me after all. And soon, Karen would too. For now, she thought this was her territory, her rules, her power trip. But this time, I hadn't come back to follow her rules. I'd come back to break them. And when the truth finally hit her, when she realized the landlord she had spent a decade tormenting was now the landlord of the entire valley, I wanted a front-row seat to the look on her face. The games were just beginning. Night fell differently in the mountains. The city lights I'd grown used to, those harsh neon halos and restless glows, had trained my eyes to expect noise, movement, chaos. But the valley night was deep, old, alive. Shadows stretched across the pines like slow-moving giants. The wind murmured secrets through branches. And somewhere in the distance, an owl asked a question I didn't yet know how to answer. It felt like coming home to a place I had never fully left. After Karen's grand exit, I'd spent hours inside the cabin reacquainting myself with its rhythm, the groaning floorboards, the stove that still hissed when heated, the old rocking chair that creaked like it was gossiping every time you sat in it. A few nests of dust lingered in corners, and the windows needed a wipe, but it was mine, untouched, waiting. I'd lit the fireplace, not because I needed it, but because the valley felt wrong without crackling wood in the background. Flames danced against the stone hearth as I checked through the paperwork scattered across the dining table. Deeds, survey maps, legal transfer confirmations, ownership filings. Each document was a building block of the empire I had quietly secured while the HOA had been busy policing mailbox colors and lawn heights. I skimmed through one particular map, an overhead layout of the entire Mountains Crest development. The cabins, the private roads, the community areas, the trails, every inch of it outlined, labeled, and now stamped with my signature of ownership. The HOA still ran the community, but the land, the foundations, the very dirt beneath their meticulously maintained flower beds, mine, all mine. I traced my finger across the map, stopping at Karen's house. It was marked in bold ink, Lot 14, the supposed gem of the valley, her pride and joy. The place from which she issued her weekly decrees like some suburban monarch. The irony tasted sweet. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Not the sharp, impatient knock Karen favored. This one was softer, hesitant. I opened the door to find a familiar face. Thomas Rowe, the valley's lone handyman and unofficial town gossip. A wiry man in his late 50s, with silver hair that stuck up in directions defying gravity and a beard that looked like he'd grown it during a bet he refused to lose. "Well, I'll be damned," he said, eyes widening as he saw me. "It really is you." "Good to see you too, Tom." He let out a rusty chuckle. "Heard you were coming back. Didn't believe it till I saw your truck. The valley's been buzzing ever since Karen spotted you." "Of course she has. She's been pacing around like a cat that swallowed a bee," Tom said. "Whole HOA's on edge." "Already?" He nodded vigorously. "Word is, she's calling an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Claims she's got urgent compliance concerns." He air-quoted dramatically. A slow smile crept across my lips. Fast work. She must have sprinted home to prepare her battle strategy. "Let me guess," I said. "She wants to make an example out of me." "She'll try," Tom snorted. "But truth is, she's nervous. Something about you being back as her rattled. Can't figure out why. He didn't know. No one did. Good, I said simply. Tom scratched his beard. Listen, folks around here might complain about the HOA, but most of us ain't loyal to Karen. We just trying to live our lives without her throwing a fit. I remember. And I'm saying this because, well, I figure you didn't come back just to roast marshmallows by the fire. I met his eyes. You would be right. A spark of curiosity flickered in his expression, but Tom wasn't stupid. He knew better than to pry too deep. He shifted awkwardly. You need anything? Repairs? Supplies? Cabin's looking good but could use some checking. I'm fine for now, I said, but I'll let you know. He gave a quick salute. Good. And, just between us, I'm not saying I want drama, but I sure as hell wouldn't mind seeing someone knock Karen down a peg. Oh, I replied, leaning against the doorway, you might want to stick around. Then Tom left with a laugh that echoed down the path long after his footsteps faded. The next morning, sunlight blasted through the windows as though the valley were trying to yank me out of sleep. I rolled off the couch, poured a mug of coffee strong enough to restart a dead heart, and stepped onto the front porch. The Valley Village Center sat just a short walk downhill, a cluster of community buildings, a few shops, and, of course, the infamous HOA clubhouse. Through the trees, I could already see cars gathering. People shuffled up the walkway, clutching documents like they were attending a court hearing. I strolled down casually, sipping my coffee and enjoying the drama unfolding ahead. Karen stood at the clubhouse entrance like an airport security guard, clipboard in hand. Sunglasses perched so aggressively on her nose they looked like a challenge. Residents walked past her with stiff smiles, every one of them under her scrutinizing glare. As I approached, her spine straightened. Well, if it isn't our newest problem, she said. You really know how to make a person feel welcome, I said. This meeting is mandatory, she snapped. Good thing I was planning to attend anyway. I stepped inside before she could protest. The clubhouse's main hall buzzed with murmurs and shifting forms. Residents already seated turned to look at me. Some whispered. A few smiled. Others looked nervous, like Karen might punish them for acknowledging my existence. She didn't join the room until everyone had settled. When she finally entered, the atmosphere tightened like a belt around the room's ribs. Karen marched to the front, cleared her throat dramatically. We have several urgent violations to address, she announced. Her gaze flicked to me with every syllable. One resident in particular seems determined to disregard our community standards. I set my coffee on the folding table with a deliberate clink. She glared at me. As many of you know, Mr. Hale has returned. A hand shot up in the back. It was Tom. Yeah, but why is that an emergency? He asked loudly. Scattered chuckles. Karen's jaw clenched. Because he has already committed multiple infractions. She clicked a remote, and a projector lit up, displaying a massive image of my cabin. My God, I whispered loudly, you hacked my house? More chuckles. Karen ignored it. From paint color to yard maintenance to vehicle noncompliance, his disregard threatens the harmony of Mountain's crest. I raised my hand. Quick question. Karen stiffened. What? Have you considered that you might overreact to everything? Laughter rippled through the room. Her face darkened. This is not about overreaction. This is about order. She turned to the residents. We cannot have chaos. And so, I propose we issue an immediate fine and mandatory corrective orders. Her words sparked a murmur, some agreeing, others rolling their eyes. She stood at the podium, shoulders tight, chest puffed out in triumph as though she had just declared war on a rogue nation. Perfect. She was setting herself up beautifully, and the final stroke would come soon, when she found out the truth. Because once the votes were tallied, once the meeting ended, once she marched out those doors feeling powerful and victorious, I'd make sure she learned exactly who really ran this valley now. And it wasn't her. The meeting ended with a flurry of papers, raised eyebrows, and bickering over procedural nonsense. Karen adjourned it with a smug smile of a queen who believed she'd just prevented a coup. Her clipboard was clutched to her chest like a sacred relic, and she strutted out of the clubhouse with the kind of victory strut only people with zero self-awareness could pull off. Residents filed out behind her, some nodding politely at me, others muttering about Karen's overreach, and a few whispering conspiratorially as though the air itself had ears. Tom reached me first, squinting up at me like a man trying to decide if I'd grown a second head. "Well," he said, "that went exactly how everyone expected." "I was hoping for fireworks," I replied. "Maybe a thrown folding chair." Tom snorted. "Give her time. You know Karen. She'll escalate." "She already has," I said, tapping the stack of violation notices she'd shoved at me before storming out. Printing costs alone had to sting. He leaned closer. "So, when exactly are you planning to, drop the bombshell?" "I didn't say that." He lied painfully. I offered a thin smile. "Soon. The timing just needs to be perfect." Tom rubbed his hand together like a kid anticipating a show. Then he sobered, lowering his voice. "Just be careful. Karen's been weird lately. More obsessive than usual." I raised an eyebrow. "Weird how?" "She's been holding secret meetings with the board, shredding documents late at night. And she ain't just handing out fines anymore. She's been threatening people." I paused. "Threatening?" He nodded. "Single mom on lot 22 got cited for having a tricycle in her yard. When she pushed back, Karen said she'd make things difficult for her if she didn't cooperate." "That tracks," I muttered. Tom continued. "An old man Whitaker, she threatened to have his guest pass privileges revoked because he refused to trim his hedges to regulation height." I winced. "Yeah, that sounds like Karen." Tom gave me a grave look. "People are tired. She's got her claws in deep. You taking her down? Folks would celebrate." "I'm not doing this for the valley," I said. "I'm doing this for me." "Sure," he said, smiling knowingly. "But that doesn't mean it won't help the rest of us." I walked the path back to my cabin alone. The morning fog had lifted, revealing long stretches of pine-laced mountains. Birds trilled. The air held that pine and earth crispness you can't bottle or fake. Every crack of twigs under my boots echoed deeper, like the valley itself was listening, waiting. Someone else was waiting, too. As I rounded the bend past the first fork in the trail, a voice called out, "You!" I didn't even need to turn around. "Oh, good," I said dryly. "Another Karen encounter. I was afraid I'd go more than an hour without one." She stormed toward me, heels sinking into the dirt with each indignant step. Anyone else would have taken the paved community path. But Karen wasn't anyone else. She was a woman who believed gravity should adjust itself to her needs. She stopped inches in front of me, stabbing a finger into the air. "You made a mockery of this morning's meeting." I didn't say anything untrue. "That's irrelevant." "Is it?" Her cheeks went cherry red. "You're violating regulations. Laughing about it doesn't make it less serious." "What regulations have I broken exactly?" I asked. "Name one that matters." She scoffed. "Your cabin is outdated, rustic, eye-offending. And your truck is a truck. It is brown. And—" She inhaled sharply like the color personally offended her. "That shade," she said icily, "is not on the approved palette. Nature disagrees." "Nature," she barked, "is not on the HOA's board of directors." "Well," I said, "it should be." She blinked. "Excuse me." "Think about it. The birds don't need approval to chirp. The trees don't need a permit to grow. The flowers don't need to submit a full landscaping plan. You're being ridiculous." "Am I?" I asked. "Or is it ridiculous that you think you can control everything?" Her eyes sharpened into slits. "You think you're clever. But I'm not stupid. You came back for a reason." I didn't respond. She stepped closer. "What are you planning?" That was when I smiled, a slow unfurling smile that made some part of her instinctively step back. "Wouldn't you like to know?" Her face twitched, the foundation cracking. She spun around and stumped up the trail, muttering something about increasing enforcement patrols, as if the valley were a prison yard and she was its warden. I watched her go until she vanished into the trees. Then I turned and continued toward the cabin, knowing her paranoia would soon work in my favor. Because Karen was like a wildfire, she burned brightest when threatened. She would overreact. She would lash out. She would push every wrong button in the valley until the residents were desperate for someone to take control from her. And that someone? Well, I was already holding the deed. By the afternoon, the entire valley was buzzing. A group of neighbors gathered near the community mailbox station, clustered in little groups like bees around fresh nectar. As I walked by, conversations quieted, then resumed in cautious murmurs. Heard she's raising the monthly fees again. My deck is now non-compliant because the stain is too lightly tinted. She put a warning notice on my grill. My grill. Sick of being scared. I stopped long enough for a young mom, tired eyes, toddler on her hip, to glance nervously at me. "Is it true?" she asked softly. "Did you talk back to her?" "I didn't say anything insulting," I replied. "I just told the truth." She looked at me like I was a mythical creature. No one talks back to Karen. "Maybe that's why she's like this," I said. Her shoulders slumped. "We're all tired. We can't afford to sell and move, but we're trapped under her thumb." "You won't be trapped much longer," I said before walking away. Her hopeful whisper followed me. When I reached the cabin again, the sun was dipping low, staining the treetops gold. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in months. "Hey," I said when the line picked up. "Yeah, it's me. Everything's in place. The valley's boiling over." A pause. "No, she has no idea yet, but she will." Another pause. A low chuckle from the person on the other end. "I told you," I said, staring out over the valley. "Once the HOA collapses under its own weight, I'll step in." I picked up one of the legal folders on my table, tapping it thoughtfully. And when that happens, she'll finally find out who owns the ground she walks on. I ended the call. Outside, thunder murmured on the distant horizon. A storm was coming, and I was the one who summoned it. By morning, the valley felt different. Not in the weather, though clouds hung heavy and low like the mountains were brooding, but in the people. The tension, always present under Karen's reign, now throbbed just beneath the surface. You could feel it in the tight greetings between neighbors, the way people glanced over their shoulders as they walked, the quick shuffling of feet whenever a pastel-pink figure appeared around a corner. The HOA's peace had always been fake, but now the cracks were visible, and Karen, naturally, was making everything worse. I first heard the shouting while chopping firewood behind my cabin. The rhythmic thud of the axe broke when a shrill voice pierced through the trees. Totally unacceptable. This is a community, not a dumpster. I wiped my brow with the back of my arm. Here we go. Leaving the half-split log behind, I followed the path down toward the commotion. The closer I got, the louder the chaos became. When I emerged into the clearing near the parking lot, I saw a cluster of residents forming a loose circle, and in the center, Karen stood with her hands on her hips, her sunglasses perched like a battle visor. Facing her was a teenager, maybe 17, wearing a hoodie in a defiant glare. "You can't fine me for parking here," he said, arms crossed. "Yes," Karen snapped. "I can. Your vehicle is improperly aligned and violates our aesthetic harmony guidelines." He stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "It's 2 inches over the line." 2 inches becomes 4, and 4 becomes chaos, she said dramatically. A woman, his mother, judging by the resemblance, rushed over, breathless. "Karen, please. He just got home from school. There's nowhere else to park. The visitor spots are full." "And whose fault is that?" Karen demanded. "Yours, for allowing him to take up unacceptable space." Someone in the crowd muttered, "You mean the space his car is parked in?" Karen whirled. "Who said that?" A few people stepped back. The mother's face flushed with humiliation and anger. "You're being unreasonable." "I'm being protective," Karen said. "This community deserves order." "And you think screaming at teenagers is order?" a man in the back asked. The murmurs strengthened. A few crossed arms. A few exchanged looks. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The valley was waking up. Karen felt it too. Her eyes flicked around nervously before settling on me as I stepped into view. Her nostrils flared. "Oh," she spat. "Of course. Here to cause more trouble." "Just observing," I said. "Looks like things are getting a little tense." There is no tension, she barked. Only rule breakers. Funny, I said, because it looks like half the valley disagrees. Her lips thinned into a razor line. This is all your fault. How? You undermine me. You disrespect the HOA. You embolden these rabble-rousers. I looked at the residents gathered around her. Rabble-rousers. Huh. A few chuckles rippled through the crowd. Karen realized her mistake too late. This conversation is over, she snapped. Effective immediately, the board will issue stricter guidelines. Clearly leniency has made you all complacent. Stricter, someone echoed. You can't be serious, another groaned. Karen lifted her chin. Very. She turned on her heel and stalked away, leaving the rest of us in stunned silence. The teenager let out a long breath. She's nuts. You okay? I asked him. His mother nodded stiffly. Thank you for stepping in. I didn't do much. You didn't have to, she said. Just standing there made her panic. Interesting. Karen wasn't just afraid of losing control. She was afraid of me. Perfect. By midday, Karen had unleashed a storm of new regulations. People's inboxes were flooded with emails listing restrictions that bordered on nonsensical. No outdoor lights after 9 p.m. No parking on any pavement not specifically outlined in the community map, even briefly. No trash bins visible for more than 5 minutes before or after collection. No unapproved facial expressions in HOA photos. Yes, really. No excessive laughter in community spaces. The residents were outraged. The group chat, once a sleepy bulletin board of bake sales and yard sales, dissolved into a digital riot. Someone's lost it. Who's she to decide how we laugh? We can't even breathe without her permission. We need to do something. And then, eventually, why don't we talk to him? The guy Karen hates. He seems reasonable. My name popped into the conversation repeatedly. People who barely acknowledged me before were now looking at me as some kind of possible savior. Irony was a beautiful thing. Around 3 p.m., someone knocked on my door. Not Karen's hurricane knock. Not Tom's soft tap. This one was firm, steady. When I opened the door, I found a small delegation, 5 residents, ranging in age from mid-20s to mid-60s. They hovered nervously, as if unsure whether they should really be here. The woman in front, short, auburn hair, serious expression, cleared her throat. I'm Missy Harper, she said, vice chair of the HOA board. Interesting. The board members usually followed Karen like anxious ducklings. She gestured to the others. We need help. I raised an eyebrow. With what? With her, another resident, an older man, said bluntly, she's gone power crazy. Gone. I echoed. I think she's always been that way. Missy sighed. Look, we've tried reasoning with her. We've tried limiting her authority. She bulldozes everyone, and now she's threatening to dissolve the board entirely. She can't do that, I said. She shouldn't be able to, Missy corrected. But she's claiming some obscure clause give her emergency powers. We're pretty sure she made it up. Sounds like her. More nodding. Finally, a younger man stepped forward. We heard you stood up to her today. She listens to no one, but you shake her. Missy folded her arms. We're asking if you're willing to help us. Maybe speak at a community town hall. Show her she can't control everything. They looked at me with hope they barely trusted themselves to feel. Please, Missy added. She's destroying us. For a moment, I was silent. The old me, the one Karen crushed years ago, would have jumped in to help just for the satisfaction. But the version of me standing here now had a deeper objective. Helping them wasn't a burden. It was strategy. All right, I said finally. I'll help. Relief washed over them like a tide. But I added, there's something I need to tell you all soon. Something important. Their faces tense with curiosity. Missy asked, what is it? Not yet, I said. You'll know when the time's right. They exchanged looks but didn't push. After all, Karen had pushed enough for everyone. As they left, Tom intercepted me on the path, grinning like a man who just witnessed history. "So it's starting." "Oh, yes," I said, glancing toward the HOA clubhouse. "And she has no idea what's coming." Thunder rumbled overhead again. Closer now. Perfect. The storm wasn't coming anymore. It was here. By the time the town hall rolled around, the storm clouds had rolled in thick and bruised, gathering over the valley like a great, dark warning. Rain hadn't started yet, but the air was loaded with a kind of tension that made your fingertips buzz, as though the sky was holding its breath. Fitting, really, because the valley wasn't the only thing about to break. The HOA clubhouse was overflowing. People stood shoulder to shoulder, some leaning against walls, others pressed into doorways, all wearing the same expression: tired, frustrated, ready for change. Conversations buzzed like static. Papers rustled. Chairs scraped. You could practically taste the unrest. Karen, naturally, was at the front of the room, guarding her podium as if it were the last slice of cake at a birthday party. Her pastel blazer today was a violent shade of mint, almost aggressively cheerful. It contrasted beautifully with the way she glowered at everyone. The moment I stepped inside, her face twisted like she'd bitten into a lemon. "Well," she spat, "look who decided to show up." "I was invited," I said. She scoffed. "Not by me." "That's probably why I came." A ripple of laughter danced through the room. Karen's eye twitched. Missy Harper, the vice chair, was seated near the front, hands clasped tightly around the folder. She gave me a small nod, a silent agreement, a signal. It was time. The residents found seats. The board settled in. Karen rapped her gavel so hard it sounded like she was trying to crack the table in half. "This emergency town hall," she announced, "is to address the out-of-control misbehavior infecting our community. Standards are collapsing. Rules are being ignored. And certain people," her eyes snapped to me, "are encouraging chaos." I raised an eyebrow. Must be exhausting being that paranoid. Another laugh ripple, this time stronger. Karen's nostrils flared. "The HOA is not a joke, Mr. Hale. It is the law of this valley." "Actually," I said calmly, "it's not." The room shifted. People leaned in. Karen blinked rapidly, thrown off by the casual tone. "What did you say?" she demanded. I shrugged. "The HOA enforces community guidelines. But you're not the law." A pause. "And you're definitely not the owner of this land." Karen froze. "Of course I'm not the owner," she snapped. "The land belongs to Mountains Crest Development Corporation." A few residents murmured agreement. They'd heard that myth for years. I folded my arms. That was true. Past tense. Karen smirked. "What are you implying?" "That you own it." Before I could answer, Missy spoke up. "Karen, we need to listen." "And no," Karen barked. "We do not need to listen to baseless fantasies." She jabbed her finger at me like she was swatting a fly. "Mr. Hale is trying to undermine the HOA. He's manipulating all of you, encouraging disobedience. He's nothing but—" A thunderclap cracked so hard the windows rattled. Perfect timing. I pulled a folded document from my jacket pocket and held it up. The Valley's property transfer certificate, notarized, stamped, and very, very real. "Karen," I said, voice steady, "I'm not manipulating anyone. I'm telling you the truth." I unfolded the papers slowly. "I bought Mountains Crest land rights 3 months ago." Dead silence. The kind of silence that you could walk across. She blinked once, twice, 3 times. "You're lying." I offered her the document. She didn't take it. Residents leaned forward, whispering. Someone gasped. Someone else murmured. I knew something was up. Karen let out a brittle laugh. No, this is ridiculous. You're a troublemaker. A nobody. You can't afford this land. Funny thing about leaving the valley, I said quietly. You can build something while you're gone. Her lips curled. This is forged. A prank. You're desperate for attention. Then verify it, Missy said, standing. I already called the county recorder's office. They confirmed it. Karen jerked as if she'd been struck. You what? Missy didn't flinch. I've seen the documents myself. They're legitimate. More murmurs. Karen's composure started to crack. Her hands trembled as she turned to the residents. You can't believe this. He hates this community. He hates me. I smiled. I don't hate the community. Her attention snapped back to me like a rubber band. But I did come back for you. A collective inhale spread across the room. Karen staggered back half a step. She stared at me as though I'd peeled away the walls and revealed something monstrous. You came back to ruin me, she whispered. No, I said softly. You ruined yourself. I just came to watch. Another thunderclap rolled through the valley, shaking the floor. Rain began pounding against the roof. Karen's face twisted into raw fury. This is MY Valley. MY rules. You can't just take it. I didn't take it, I said. I bought it. Legally. You won't keep it, she snarled. I'll fight this. I'll go to court. I'll have you removed. You can't remove a landlord from his own land, I said. The room broke into murmurs. Suddenly, an older resident stood up. Mr. Whitaker, the man Karen had threatened over his hedges. He adjusted his glasses. Karen, maybe it's time you stepped down. She spun toward him, betrayal etched across her face. You too. He held her gaze. You've gone too far. Others stood, one by one. I'm tired of your threats. You've made our lives miserable. You're supposed to help us, not control us. Enough is enough. Karen backed up until she hit the podium. I am the HOA president, she hissed. I have authority. Missy stepped forward. Not anymore. Karen paled. What? Missy lifted a stack of papers. The board held a closed session this afternoon. Due to erratic behavior, threats, and abuse of position, we voted unanimously to remove you as president. Karen shook her head violently. No, you can't do this. I am this community. Lightning flashed, illuminating her twisted expression. I stepped closer, not threatening, just steady. Karen, I said quietly, this ends now. For a moment, she looked like she might explode or collapse. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed, a high, sharp, hysterical sound. You think this is over, she whispered. You don't know anything. You don't know what I still have. Her hands gripped the podium so tightly her knuckles whitened. I built this place, she hissed. I protected it, and I will destroy anyone who threatens it. The room shifted uneasily. Then she leaned forward, eyes boring into mine. And that includes you. Thunder boomed again, this time even louder, and the storm inside Karen finally snapped. She shoved the podium over and stormed out of the clubhouse, shrieking, This isn't finished. The door slammed behind her. Silence. Rain hammered the roof. Everyone stared at me. Missy swallowed hard. What now? I exhaled slowly. Now, I said, we brace ourselves. Because Karen wasn't gone. Not yet. She had something planned. And whatever it wasn't going to be small. Karen had always walked like she owned the valley, heels striking the ground like little gavels, ponytail whipping the wind into submission, clipboard hugged to her chest like some holy artifact of authority. But that morning, as she marched up the hill toward my cabin, she walked differently. Her steps were frantic, desperate, uncertain. Word must have reached her faster than expected. From the porch of the cabin, I watched her stumble over a rock she'd never noticed in her life. Her sweater was buttoned unevenly. Her hair was frizzing in every direction like she'd been struck by lightning or reality. And for the first time since I'd ever known her ever-present clipboard was missing. Whatever she was about to say, she hadn't written a script for it. Good. She reached the bottom of the steps and paused, breathing hard, glaring like I personally caused oxygen to offend her. We need to talk, she said. You're right, I said. We do. Come on up. She climbed the stairs, each step creaking under the weight not of her body but of everything she'd built crumbling around her. She stopped at the top and looked around the valley as if hoping the trees would tell her this was all a dream. Her voice quivered. The board, the homeowners, the entire HOA, everyone is talking about some rumor you started. Oh, I feigned innocence. What rumor is that? That you, she swallowed, that you bought the valley. Not a rumor. I stepped aside. You want to see the paperwork. Her face went pale. You're lying. I wish I were lying, I said, stepping inside and grabbing a folder thicker than one of her neighborhood newsletters. Honestly, I thought it'd be funny if this were a prank. But no, every acre, every lot line, every strip of common land your HOA claimed authority over, it's all in here. I placed it on the outdoor table. Would you like to read the deed yourself? She didn't touch it. She just stared at the folder as if a snake might coil out of it and bite her. This is impossible, she whispered. No one person can own all this. Not usually, I agreed, but the original owners were the Crawfords. No HOA existed then. They lost pieces of the land over decades. Developers bought parcels. Then they sold off bits. More developers came. They sold again. Then came the conservation group. Then the bankrupt foundation. I shrugged. Oh, very messy. But pieces fit together when someone has the patience to look. And money, Karen snapped. Oh, especially money, I said. She flinched at my tone, maybe expecting me to soften. I didn't. So yes, I said, I own the valley. The HOA's boundaries sit on my land. Your board's authority ends exactly where my property line begins, which is at the edge of every homeowner's driveway. Her mouth fell open. That means you can't regulate porch light color, or mailbox shape, or fence materials, and certainly not chimney smoke. She staggered into a chair like her legs had given out. I continued, voice even. The HOA still exists for shared amenities, streets, snow removal, community events. But enforcement. I shook my head. That's over. Effective immediately. Her eyes filled with tears, but not the sad kind, the furious kind, the kind that made her look like she wanted to rip the folder in half with her bare hands. You can't do this, she whispered. Oh, I already did. No. She slammed her fist on the table. You can't just take away my authority. I've spent 10 years keeping this community in order. Without rules, everything falls apart. People plant weeds, paint shutters ugly colors, leave garbage cans in view. Chaos. I tilted my head. Chaos or freedom? Same thing, she hissed. There it was. The truth behind every indignity she'd inflicted for years. She was addicted to control, to power, to being the queen of a kingdom made of petty regulations and overpriced landscaping suggestions. And now her crown was gone. She stood abruptly. I'll fight this. I'll go to the county, the state, the courts. Feel free, I said, but the county already approved a consolidated deed. The state has recognized the transfer. And the courts. I tapped the folder. There's not a judge in this state who'd undo it. Legally, it's airtight. Better than airtight. It's boring. The best legal wins always are. She stared at me like I'd stabbed her. This valley needs me, she said softly. No, I said. This valley tolerated you. She gasped as if I'd slapped her. I leaned closer. The homeowners don't fear losing order, Karen. They fear losing the peace you stole from them. Her cheeks flushed crimson, but before she could gather another argument, a truck rolled up the hill. Then another, and another. Soon half a dozen vehicles lined the gravel path. Homeowners climbed out, every one of them wearing expressions I'd never seen while Karen was ruling the valley. Relaxed, hopeful, relieved. The first to step forward was Mr. Delgado, the retired firefighter Karen had fined for having an unapproved flagpole height. Is it true? He asked, looking between us. The HOA can't bus us around anymore. No, Karen said sharply. Absolutely not. This man is lying. It's true, I said simply. A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd, swelling in strength. Mrs. Patel spoke next, hugging her small dog close. So I can finally keep Daisy's little yard gate? You cited me 3 times for that. Someone else chimed in. Can we vote out the whole board? Another person. Does this mean Karen can't walk into my yard with a clipboard anymore? Karen spun on the crowd. You people need rules. Without me, this place falls apart. I have devoted years to. You devoted years to terrorizing us, Mr. Delgado said. Karen froze. For the first time, she seemed to truly see the homeowners. The faces that once looked at her with weary obedience now regarded her with something new, collective defiance. You can't all turn on me, Karen whispered. I did everything for you. No one answered. Silence stretched across the valley, deep and unwavering. I stepped closer to her. Karen, the HOA board is meeting tonight. They will reorganize, and they will likely ask you to resign. I won't, she said, trembling. I refuse. That's your choice, I said, but the board can also vote to remove you. She shook her head violently. No. I am the HOA. They can't. They can, I said, and they will. Her voice cracked on the last thread of denial. What will I be without this? Human, I said, just like the rest of us. Her knees buckled, and for a moment I thought she might fall. Instead, she turned and walked away, not with her usual commanding stride, but slowly, shakily, like every step took something from her. No one stopped her. No one called after her. When she disappeared down the path, the valley felt quieter, lighter, like it had exhaled for the first time in a decade. The homeowners turned to me next, not with fear, but gratitude. What now? Mrs. Patel asked. Now. I smiled. Now we rebuild this place into a community, not a kingdom. Cheers rose from the group, small at first, then loud enough to echo off the mountains. As the crowd dispersed, I looked out over the valley, the land I'd returned to, fought for, claimed, and restored. Revenge wasn't just about defeating an enemy. Sometimes it was about freeing everyone they oppress. And as the wind moved through the pines, carrying the sound of laughter across the slopes, one truth settled quietly in my chest. The valley wasn't mine because I owned the land. It was mine because I finally brought peace back to it. The mountains always remember. This time, they remembered victory.